pirates, yes, they rob I. Sold I to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit. But my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom, all I've ever had? Redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy. None of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom, all I've ever had? Redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy. None of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom, all I've ever had? Redemption songs, redemption songs, these songs of freedom, redemption songs. Okay. ¿Alguien necesita que hablo en español también? English then. So I have a question. Out of the people here, you guys are an interesting group of people. Out of everybody here, who likes to be told what to do a lot of the time? Nobody. Nobody. Okay. So what I realized is that most of us, I think from the time we're 2 and we learn how to say no and we say it all day and all night, that little 2-year-old who wants to say no to everything stays in us as adults. And we end up being able to, we don't say no out loud, but inside we're thinking, no, I don't want to do that, pushing against whatever it is that's being suggested. And we get really good at that. But what I realized is that a lot of us never get good at reaching for something. We're good at pushing it away, but we're not good at reaching for something. And we don't learn to choose something for ourselves to reach towards, right? So pushing away stuff doesn't really get you anywhere. Reaching for something is a way to move forward. So I am wondering if you guys have figured out things that you want to reach towards that maybe could be a career or a job for you. Like there's art, there's music, there's all kinds of things that professional people do for money. People create video games for a great living. People create music for video games for a great living. People are teachers and scientists and stuff like that. Has anybody here kind of identified what they want to do, or at least what they want to explore? Yeah? Okay. So sometimes, especially when you're younger, although it can happen when you're older as well, there are sometimes when we don't know what we want to do, right? And it's a good time when you're younger to explore different things. There are a lot of us who are adults who, if a younger person came to us and said, hey, can I come and work for you for free so I can get to know what this business or this job is about? They would be so happy, many of them, because they'll be able to, they're gonna think, oh, I wish I'd been that smart when I was a kid, to start exploring stuff and see what might work for me, right? Because sometimes, I had a friend who went to law school, so it was a lot of school. And then when she went to work as a lawyer, she hated it. After all that, right? And she didn't really check it out. I was afraid to really go for the things that I wanted to find out about or I wanted to work in, because I think in the back of my head, I thought, okay, what if I give this all my attention and I'm not good at it, right? It's terrifying. But if you try different things, you learn to take risks, you learn things about yourself, you learn things about that thing that you thought you wanted to do, and after a while you'll get better at taking risks. You'll get better at weighing situations and seeing if this is a risk worth taking, if I should check this out, or if I should wait, or if I should find out from somebody else what their experience is. So taking risks and choosing things to experiment with can give you a really nice sense of yourself and who you are and what you like. When you're in school, a lot of it is about fitting in with other people. There's a woman who said that fitting in and belonging are totally different things. Belonging means that you can be your unique self and still have people who care for you and embrace you, right? So, does anybody know who wrote the song that I sing? No? Okay. It was written by a guy named Bob Marley. Have you guys heard that name? Yeah? No? Okay. All right, so Bob Marley was a reggae musician. He was one of the people who started reggae like 50 years ago, which is fairly recent for a style of music. And he came from a part of Jamaica where people were so poor, they didn't even have shoes. Like, literally, no shoes. The poverty that we know here is on a whole different level in a lot of different places, like Jamaica. And so, even with that, Bob Marley was somebody who was able to take reggae music, which he and a bunch of other people started, and he was able to make it popular around the world. People know about reggae around the world, mostly because of him, this guy who started with nothing. But what he did was he worked little by little, step by step, until he had something. And if you can do that, that means that people can then actually support you in what you're doing. You know, maybe you can get a grant, maybe you can get a scholarship, maybe you can get the help of a teacher or some other administrative person. But if it's still just in your head, nobody can really help you then, right? It's like, do you guys know what an architect is? Yeah, okay. So an architect makes plans for buildings and houses and any kind of a building structure. And they might have a great idea in their head, but nobody can help them with that idea or bring it to life until he or she makes some plans that people can see, right? Same thing with whatever you're working on. If there's something that you're interested in, you can work on it long enough to where you have something to show and say, hey, this is what I'm working on, and I'd like some help with it. Or is there a way to get funding to make this happen, right? So instead of thinking that you're stuck having to do the things that you're told to do, think about what you want to do and work on that step by step. Even if it's 15 minutes a week, if you work steadily on something, you're going to have something at the end of the day. It can even be that you spend your 15 minutes a week on a class that you're struggling with. You know, regular time and energy spent on a goal will get you somewhere, right? And you have to decide that you are important enough to choose something that's for you and work towards it. After a while, there are not going to be people telling you what to do, except for, I mean, there's jobs that you can end up being told what to do in a way that does not please you. But if you've created something, there's a better chance of you being able to work in a way that does please you and gives you some freedom and some flexibility. Okay, so you guys said that do you mind telling me what you've decided you want to do? Oh, you changed your mind. You're scared to talk because these guys will make fun of you. Is that what it is? Bless you. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is something that actually happened. It happened back in the 1940s. And there was, in California, in places where they plant food, crops, vegetables, and fruit and stuff like that, right? In the fields during the harvest time, the farmers in California would hire Mexican nationals to come and pick the crops, right? Harvest the crops. And they were treated very, very badly. They had to live in huts, sometimes worked picking fruits and vegetables standing in almost a foot of water. They were out in the countryside where they didn't have access to hardly anything. And they probably didn't have schools. And they didn't have access to places like libraries, because they're far from the cities, right? So there was an incident where what they would do is they'd have them come and pick the crops, and then they would send them back to Mexico. And so there was an incident where 20 nationals, Mexican nationals, were being flown back to Mexico, and there were 4 people who were doing like security people and pilots and stuff. So 24 people, and the plane crashed. And so there was a guy named Woody Guthrie who was a protest singer, and he was appalled by how the press talked about this plane crash, because the names of all the people who were on the plane who were not Mexicans were spoken about by their name, but the Mexicans were just called deportees. And so he wrote a song about it, and it's called Deportee. And I'll do it, and then I've got some questions for you guys. Is this the best way we can grow mis amigos, Jesús y María. You won't have a name when you fly the big airplane. All they will call you will be deportee. Just deportee. So, I think that we can be sad about what happened. I think we can be angry about what happened. But I feel like the people who had those hard lives would probably instead want us to use the resources that we have at our disposal to have better lives than they had. So, can anybody, actually I'm gonna go around the room. Can you think of one resource that you have, some access that you have that they probably didn't?
Technology.
That's the biggest one right there. That one is huge. So they couldn't even really communicate. That was in the days when phones were either stuck on a wall or you didn't have any, right? If they didn't have schools and they didn't have libraries, that meant they didn't have any access to education to change their lives. They were just stuck, right? And now we have all this stuff available to us at our fingertips. And we can learn just about anything we want just going on the computer, right? So that's huge. Can you think of something that they might have had, that you have access to that they might not have?
All of our water.
I'm sorry?
All of our water.
All of our water? Good one. And it was very similar, the way that people were treated was very similar to how slaves were treated in the South. And after slavery ended, people had nowhere to go because the slave owner that you used to work for doesn't now want to pay you. So where are you going to get money from, right? So they ended up doing sharecropping, which is, you give me seeds, I plant the crops, I harvest the crops, and then you take part of the profit, and I'm supposed to get part of the profit. But generally speaking, people wouldn't always end up in debt to the person who had given them the seeds, right? And it wasn't until the Industrial Revolution, when factories started happening, that people in the South, Black people, were able to go north to Detroit and New York and other places to get jobs. But again, it was manual, menial, low-paying labor. And they had to move a lot because a job would end here and they'd have to go somewhere else. So, again, stuck in a different way, but people were getting stuck. And you don't have to be stuck. And you have water, oh man, the things that people were doing for their health in the South before the Civil Rights Movement, you couldn't drink out of a water fountain that was for white people. And there probably wasn't a water fountain for Black people. And there might not have been water anywhere nearby, and you just had to figure it out. The same thing with bathrooms. There were no bathrooms for Black people. Same thing with people working in the fields. No bathrooms, no access to clean water. The food was pesticides, There are a lot of pesticides in that those fields, and people ended up having a lot of illnesses because of that. Can I ask you something about what kind of access we have now that they didn't have?
Like more mechanical stuff.
More mechanical stuff?
Yeah, like things like you use these to make, and you don't have to make it yourself.
So stuff like washing machines and cars, yeah. Dishwashers, all that stuff that makes our lives easier, you know? And the person next to you, hi. One thing. Tools, absolutely, and tools are getting better and better all the time, you know? So our lives are easier and we have more time to actually do things like develop ourselves. What you saying? Houses? Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
Cars.
I said cars.
Oh. Wait, you said cars.
Hmm?
You said cars.
Mm-hmm.
Phones.
We kind of talked about phones.
I don't really have any.
Okay, and you don't have any? Speak up. Electricity. Huge. Come on, you have one, I'm sure you do. Think of something that you use every day that they probably had no access to.
Beds.
Beds? Yeah. Okay. All right. So the last thing I want to talk to you about is being your strongest self. Like I said before, a lot of us try to fit in when we're younger, but then you find out that when you're trying to look for employment, you want a job and a career, it's the things that make you different that allow you to get interesting jobs a lot of the times. A lot of the jobs that used to be manual labor or menial labor are now being automated, right? So those jobs are starting to not exist anymore. But what people do need is ideas. If someone has a good idea, can use automation and other stuff to bring it to life, but we need the idea first, right? So there are things about you that are different from everybody else on the planet, and things that please you more than other people on the planet. If you develop those things, you might have a chance at a job that you really, really love. You might explore it and find that maybe this job that you went for, there's a job that's connected to it that you had never heard about, but is perfect for you. And you wouldn't have known about it if you hadn't explored that other job, right? So everything that we have, all those things that we just mentioned, we have them because somebody had an idea and followed up on that idea, right? This pool table, the chairs you're sitting in, the shoes that you're wearing, that camera that's doing video right now, every single thing besides like mountains and rivers and stuff like that, somebody had an idea. And we continue to have ideas. I mean, if somebody hadn't had an idea, we'd still be going to the bathroom in an outhouse, right? It's something that we're so used to and something that we expect to have, but it didn't exist until somebody had an idea. And consider that when somebody had an idea, generally speaking, people said that that idea was stupid, right? Think about the bathroom thing. Somebody says, well, I think we should set it up so that you can go to the bathroom in the house. How do you think that would sound to somebody who is always used to going outside, right? So you may not get support for your idea from the people around you, but a lot of times that's the case with new things. With electricity, those guys were laughing stocks. With planes, those guys were laughing stocks. But they kept working on it. And they followed through. They had an idea and they followed through. So the last song I'm gonna do, there's a line that says, you are the dreamer of future desires. The desire, the dream, everything we had is because somebody had an idea or a dream. And because of dreamers. And there's nobody on the planet that can bring to the table what you bring to the table with your unique self. So, you are the dreamer. Thanks for having me, you guys.